Here's an easy way to handle this. I am gonna do the error checking for you, and I'm actually gonna do the opposite of what I said because this is an interesting way to do it. So if I do this, put that in a try, and give it an accept, and in the accept, I create this, copy, label result, configure, str text, you must enter a number. And I can also say foreground equals red. So I can change the text to red in that label. Now, let's try this out and see how this works. So I'm going to choose Celsius to Fahrenheit, and I'll say 0 degrees Celsius. Uh-oh. What did I forget? I forgot something. Anybody want to know? Anybody know what it is? I forgot to tell the button to use that command. Command equals convert wrapper. Oops. There we go. And so Celsius, 0, calculate. 32 degrees Fahrenheit looks okay, not my favorite. Actually, I would like to get rid of that black border because I don't really like how it looks on there. So just get rid of that. And let's rerun it. And this is where testing comes in, right? So if I go 32 degrees Fahrenheit, calculate 0 degrees Celsius, that's right. 0. If I type in a word, uh-oh, config. That should have worked. Let's see, liberals. Foreground should have been illegal. Let's try that. Maybe it will make me spell it out. That's kind of lame, but. Okay, so there it is. You must enter a number. And if I enter a number, uh-oh, it's still red. So this is where, and this is something you wouldn't have to worry about in a functional flow program, right? In functional programming, it just goes through the lines, it does all the things. In a programming situation where we're responding to user input, we have to think about things like this because the user's behavior is going to be sometimes unpredictable. So if I want to make sure that this works, then I should put a foreground over here that changes it to black. Even if it's already black, it just makes sure that that text is always black. Okay, and I could make the text bigger, I could make it centered and all that stuff quite easily. So we've got almost everything handled. There's one more problem with this. One more problem. Can you guys see what the problem is? So if they choose nothing, I get you must enter a number. If I enter a number, it says I must enter a number. Why? It's because I don't have a radio button selected. So the easiest way I would say to do this is I would just select one by default. You could check to make sure that something has to be selected, but sometimes it's easier just to select one. And how do I do this? I would say str, remember, this is a bidirectional binding. So if I set the value of that variable at the beginning, then it it will select a button by default. And then if they don't want that one, they can just change it. But then once a radio button is selected, there's no way to unselect both of them. So once one is with radio buttons, it's quite easy. The other way, of course, that I could do that is I could check the value of it, and if that value is empty, then I could do something else. That would be a case where I would come back in here, and rather than just try and accept and giving an error that doesn't work that great, what I would probably do is do a look before I leap. I would check the radio buttons, make sure they're selected, and if they're not, I would say that, give the message, the radio, but we have to select a temperature conversion. And then if that was one of those was selected, then inside that I would probably, or after that, I would check to make sure that they had entered a number that was valid. And then I would just do the calculations, knowing that I had everything I needed. So that look before you leap can probably allow you to give more nuanced, with less effort, more nuanced feedback. Of course, you can do it with try and accept, which is something you've been doing, which is trying to throw specific errors depending on what's going on. But sometimes it's easier to do look before you leap because it allows you to check those discrete areas and then give feedback based on those. So that is kind of a completed program. And there's some polish. Obviously, some things that I would like to do in here is I would like to make the display bigger, like the font bigger. And I would also like to maybe color the font based on the temperature. So if it's hot, it's like more red. And if it's colder, it's like more blue. So you could make it a little bit more fun. But the functionality of that program is there. And that's kind of the process that I would go through in creating something like this. So I'd start kind of with a prototype of the window, of the layout and the widgets, and then I would add a function if I was pulling in a function from outside or a function that had arguments. Even if you create a function that needs arguments, sometimes a wrapper function is a better way to go because it allows you to reuse that other function, the function that actually does the work, that does the calculations or whatever. It allows you to use it later on.